Okay, so this is not the video quality that you will see for the remainder of the video. However, I lost like the first few minutes of the regular recording. I have no idea how that happened. But hello and welcome to the Fat Squirrel Speaks. This is Amy Beth, also known as Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. And apparently I started to talk about taxes. So because it's April 16th, and that means in the US we just had tax day on April 15th. And so, yeah, here, I'm gonna start talking about that stuff now. It's right, like it felt very satisfying, and it's very easy. Okay, I am a person whose brain is well suited to doing those kinds of taxes, and so I always found it really enjoyable. But now as a small business owner, it is such a dread, and I always put it off until like the very last moment. So if you were also in that boat with me, I feel you. I felt like I should make a post like on April 12th when I started. Was it the 12th when I started? Or maybe it was the 11th. Maybe this year was so good I started so that like we could either commiserate together, or you could be like, oh, and you would feel like very accomplished and self-righteous that you had already gotten yours done. So yeah, there's just always that little bit of a hangover. That's also why there was not a mid-month update. So yeah, but there will be a shop update on May 1st of Fat Squirrel Fibers, and I hope you're gonna like it. It's gonna involve owls. Just saying. So, but that'll be May 1st, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, fatsquirrelfibers.com, and I'll show you next time we hang out what I have for that update. Okay, let's get into it. Administrative, thank you so much. Last time we talked about the potatoes. Spoiler, I did buy some sweet potatoes. I couldn't help it. So thank you for patrons of the podcast, or those who support the podcast via Ko-fi or by buying bags. I did buy some potatoes. I did buy them from the Maine potato lady. Thank you for the recommendation. And so she did not have the Katahdin potato. And that's what I was going to, this is why I'm actually talking to you about this, is because I think I said Mount Katahdin. So the first time I ever saw that word was definitely reading it, or like maybe it was like my fourth grade, not fourth grade, my seventh grade science teacher who talked about the national parks. By the way, shout out to that science teacher. First time I think maybe I'd ever heard of a national park, and has like inspired a lifelong love of national parks. And I apologize, I can't remember what his name was. Anyway, junior high school was a real rough time for me. And I know for lots of folks, but anyway, that was all to say that I don't know if that's where I heard the word first or if I read it first, but I definitely learned the word by saying Katahdin because, but I was kindly reminded by a couple of folks that it is Mount Katahdin, which I do know. And now I feel like I'm not saying it right again because like my brain got all weird, which I do know because I go through like periods where I watch an insane amount of YouTube videos about the Appalachian Trail and thru hikers. And while I've read a lot about it, that doesn't reinforce the pronunciation. But yeah, so I do want to just correct myself. I don't always go back and correct myself because like brains and stuff. But in case that's the first time you heard about Mount Katahdin, again, that's me laughing at the fact that like my brain doesn't hold this information, and now I'm very confused about whether or not I've said that correctly. But I think I have. In case it's the first time you heard it, I wanted to just kind of go back and make sure that you knew that that was not the way I said it originally, not the correct way to say it. But there will be potatoes. Oh my gosh. I did like a little like rough gardening box plan out as I was doing notes for the update. I'm really excited. I haven't done like a good vegetable garden in a couple of years because I've had a couple of health issues that have happened. And so I'm hoping that this year all things go well, and we get some plants in the ground. Oh, it's so disturbingly warm here. I am in the middle of Indiana. And that is sort of like if you divided the big United States, like the main 48, if you divided them into 4, it would be just sort of like northeast of that middle intersection. Well, it's not just northeast. It's like kind of underneath the like little line of lakes that you see in the picture. Or if you're in the US and you're not familiar. I'm 3 hours south of Chicago, if that helps you. But it's been disturbingly warm. We're currently at almost, like, we're gonna have a high today of I think 81. And we've actually had about a week, I want to say, of pretty good weather. And so I'm having that resistance, like that spring resistance of like whether I should put plants out. Technically, our last frost date, I want to say, is May 10th, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're feeling sassy, you can put stuff out on Mother's Day. Is kind of like the general rule of thumb. I'm in gardening zone 6B, I think. But I'm very much resisting the urge to put stuff out early. Not because I need to. Like, I have seedlings growing. They're probably not gonna grow faster outside. Will they grow faster outside? Actually, they might grow faster outside because that's the whole thing about like hardening them off, right? So you have to put them out early because they get a sunburn. I always thought it was because they couldn't handle the cold, and I'm sure that's part of it. But then I read that it's because they actually get sunburned if you just like go from not having like your seedlings, like just putting them outside without like doing that, like put them outside for a couple hours in the shade, put them outside for 3 or 4 hours in the shade, put them outside for a couple hours in the regular sun. But that like you kind of warm up because they actually can get sunburned more so than the cold. Isn't that fun? It's like every time I look at my little plants now, I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to treat them more delicately because they are like me. And they get the sunburn. Can you see that I have? No, you don't think you can see. I got a little bit of sunburn from the day from doing some digging in the beds. Getting them prepped. So yeah, I'm doing big gardening plans. I'm excited to get out there and to have it done. I don't really like doing the bed prep. I have I have 3 4x8 raised beds, and they're not like those super sexy like knee-high raised beds. Oh, those are so hot. Mine are just like 11 inches, and like they're some sort of like plasticky wood. Like, it's not wood, but it's like some sort of like plastic composite material. I think I got them, well, I know I got them at Sam's Club, and really they were like, I think that they've been like $50 each time I've bought them, because I've bought them on 2 different occasions. And the original ones I purchased right before I started, well, quite a bit before I started this gig. I purchased them like the spring that I got laid off from my like straight 9-to-5 job, which is how this whole thing started, like 14 years ago. Well, that's when I got laid off. I got them like that spring, and then I got laid off in like May. So I had time to work on them. Best thing that ever happened to me, by the way, getting laid off. So those have lasted really nicely, especially for that price point. Like, they've been a really good value. And so, yes, but so I haven't really, I planted flowers in them last year and the year before, but I haven't planted all of my beds out. And when I planted flowers, I didn't like religiously double dig them out. So this year I need to double dig all of my beds out and get the soil aerated and get rid of the like intense level of weedage. Will this be the year that I get the cattle panels? Oh, I don't know. It might be the year I get the cattle panels. So if you do any sort of like raised bed gardening and you're on the YouTubes, you might have seen, you can get them at Tractor Supply Company, and it's like literally what they use for like cattle fencing. but they're like a galvanized metal, like I'm assuming steel, I don't know. And they're 50 inches wide by 16 feet. Well, technically they're 50 inches high by 16 feet wide. And they also make them in half panels, but the half panels are like the same, like $23.99 or something. They're like almost the same price as the 16-foot panel. But of course, as you can imagine, it's a little hard to transport a 16-foot panel unless you have a truck. I have seen people move them in minivans. Rock on. I mean, I've seen YouTube videos of people moving them in minivans. But as you can imagine, they're a little bit harder to transport. So there's a reason that but anyway, the whole point is, of me going on blathering-ish, is that you make like an arch with them. So you put the 50-inch, the smaller dimension in the ground, and you can use like T-posts or whatever to secure it. And then you create an arch, either just across your 4-foot wide bed or like bridging 2 beds. That's the most efficient use of them, but I don't have 2 beds to bridge like that. Look at me, I'm already thinking like, oh, what else could I do? But anyway, and so they create trellising for runner beans, for squash. I've even seen people do like actual full pumpkins on them, and it's super cool to see like pumpkins suspended in this arch. And you can use things like, I mean, I'm gonna say old pantyhose, like people have, who has pantyhose anymore? Right? But you can use things like pantyhose or something that would be similar to help support them. I mean, mine would have like hand quilted slings, clearly, because actually that would be really fun. Anyway, you support them and so they can grow. Anyway, it's very exciting. And I really love runner beans versus bush beans, even though I've tried to convert to bush beans because they're so much easier to deal with because they don't need support. And also they're great for canning because all of the beans come at one time. So like, it's like much easier to can a mess of them rather than runner beans, which unless you have quite a few, you are constantly, you know, picking a bit, and then getting enough together for a mess. But, so yeah, I don't know where that was going. Oh, it's just my cattle panel fantasies. I think I've had these fantasies for like 7 or 8 years now. I should just buy those cattle panels, right? My husband is currently between jobs. Say a little please to the universe, thanks. So like, and he has a little lightweight truck, so I could just be like, this is an adventure for the day, right? Maybe I'll get them this year. I don't know. We'll see. Secretly, I kind of want to, like, so what makes sense in like my configuration is like, I have this configuration. Like I just have like a little L of beds. And so what makes sense in my configuration is to just put one end of the trellising, the cattle panel here, and arch it over top of the box, and then put things in here that maybe you need a little bit less light. You could put like lettuces or whatever, but really also potatoes, because the beans, like you can trim off the foliage from the bottom of the beans and it's not going to hurt the bean. But what would be really fun is over here, I have like a privacy fence. And so what I would really think would be fun would be to put like grow bags over here, because I don't have enough room to put like a full bed. Or I could probably even just dig it out, because I would be putting beans in there, and beans don't need like great soil. So I could even just like dig out a really like a narrow row here. And so then I could put my trellising, like my cattle panel, although it might be too narrow. It might be too much of a, you know what I mean? Like it might be too much of a sharp arch. Like instead of the trellising being like this, it might be like this. I don't know. That's a good point. But what would be fun would be to put like either just a narrow plowed row here of beans and put the trellising that way. So then, because then you could like walk through your trellis of green beans, which would be so exciting. Because that's the only sad thing about putting them from like this side to this side is that like you really can't walk underneath of there regularly. And like, that's part of the fun. Like it's picking your little green beans off as you stroll through your garden. I'm gonna end up getting that trellis. And then I'll take you on a walk through the garden and we'll pick green beans together. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so at patreon.com. In the drop down, there's a little link tree to my my places. One of them's Patreon, one's Ko-fi. You know, I'm just saying. So anyway, so yeah, I'm just doing the resist of like, I think at this point I'm going to wait at least a week and then see what the weather forecast looks like for like the next 10 days. And then maybe that'll be my like jumping off point. But this year I think what I'm going to do is do my dahlias in grow bags. I have to get some more soil. But I'm thinking like, wouldn't that be nice? Because like lots of people will grow potatoes in grow bags, and that's kind of originally what I got them for. But then I thought, you know what? I should put the potatoes in the beds and then maybe try the dahlias in the grow bags, because wouldn't that be nice when you're done at the season? Like you can just like dump the dirt out and like get your tubers and then put those away for storage. That might be the way to go. I don't know, we'll see. But also be fun if I did the dahlias in grow bags, because then I could like put them in different places in the yard and see where they do well. Because I'd really kind of like to be able to use them along the side of my house. I live in the city, and so there's probably a yard between my house and the next house, but that side of the house is southern facing. And so I think it gets enough light, but I'm not exactly sure. But it would be really fun. I could experiment and just put a couple of them out there to see how they do. And then put the rest of them like in a place I know they'll do well. And just do a little comparison. It's hard to, okay, I have trouble experimenting, full stop. I definitely experience perfectionism tendencies that I sometimes forget are like a big part of who I am, and then I'm starkly reminded. But anyway, so I have trouble experimenting, period. But experimenting in the garden is like such a longer term project that it feels even scarier, right? It's like once you get it's not cheap to start gardening at all, unless you just happen to live in a place with like great soil and like magic, and like a huge growing season or something. So it is very expensive to start gardening, but like it's the cash dollar investment on experimentation in the garden is not that high once you get established. But man, the time investment is so kind of overwhelming, right? You're like, ugh, I'm not going to know if this works for another year, or maybe even more than a year, because maybe this year's just like a bad year in general, or maybe this is like a bad year for green beans because those Japanese beetles, those invasive little grrrs, are eating up all of my green beans. Or like maybe it rained early in the season and then I get some weird milk. You know, it's just like such a different scale. And again, my stakes are super low. Like I want to eat the produce from my garden, but if I don't get produce from the garden, I'm not going to like face food scarcity because of it. But it still feels like really like, again, I'm not great at experimenting at all. But gardening experimenting feels even like, do you have any suggestions about getting over those? Are you good at experimenting? Like, do you find that better yet, have you been bad at experimenting in the past, but you developed a way, or like you've gotten over hurdles so that it's easier for you? I would love to know. Okay, sorry, that's a lot about the garden. Let's talk about shenanigans. Oh, so we had the solstice. We were in the path of totality. I don't really have anything insightful to say. Like, if you experienced it, it was awesome. And like, I just wanted to share that we were experiencing it together. I was super lucky that I got to like sit in the hammock in my backyard and watch it. How lucky is that? I will say the craziest thing though, as like we actually were in full totality, like as in the dark sky, the neighbor security lights were flipping on. Even then, I heard people driving. Wow, right? I don't understand. I hope they were okay. But anyway, so if you experienced it, I experienced it with you. We were in it together. oh my gosh, did you feel small? Did you feel inconsequential? Did it feel like it was like a good frame for like whatever you're doing is fine? Because it really doesn't matter that much. We're going to talk about that later in my book talk. It's like both a startling and comforting viewpoint about, what is it called? In 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. Thank you for the recommendation. He calls it, and I don't know that he has coined this, but he refers to it as cosmic insignificance theory. Both like, it can be a little bit like, oh, you don't mean anything, but also that's a very liberating thing of like, done's better than good. Anyway, if you experience cosmic insignificance, I was with you, but I hope you felt it in a deeply peaceful way. And if you didn't, we'll talk about it in a minute, and maybe you'll feel it. Maybe it'll reframe it for you, and you'll feel better about it. Okay, so that was that. Oh, I also got to go to their, was it called the Ohio Valley Shop Hop, or was it just the Ohio Shop Hop? My mom met me at the Nutter Center in Dayton, Ohio. Well, outside Dayton, Ohio, at Wright State University, which was so funny because I had heard about that. I grew up in Cincinnati, which is close to that. So like I would hear advertisements for different like concerts or sports things that were at the Nutter Center, and I always envisioned it as like this huge, like fancy arena thing. Maybe I missed that part, but really the place I was just a gymnasium. And it felt like maybe it was just like 4 gymnasiums that we were. Maybe there was something fancy that I didn't see. But what it was really nice because it basically kind of gave you a little bit of a shop hop flavor. Of course, you weren't actually going to the different stores, but each store had their like booth space. And I think they said there were like 30-ish vendors. But they were all there, and you could just like do a little browse around and like look at different shop samples. Of course, some people did have yardage to cut, like bolts of fabric to cut, but most people were, I think, primarily selling patterns and like pre-cuts, so like fat quarters, you know, jelly rolls, things like that. And then like lots of notions. There were so many notions, so many rulers. But it was really cool because like you got to see, I mean, this is like what a shop hop would be, right? Like you get to go to different places and see different samples, but it was fun that they were just, again, it was so nice. You just all in one place and you could see like, oh, I liked that pattern, but oh, look what they did with it in that different fabric. And so it was really fun just to see right next to each other, these different contrasting styles and to see how different stores have curated their collection and what they're going to sell in their wares. So yeah, it was super fun. I'll show you a little, one thing I got. I did get some half yards of like Ruby Star fabrics, but I didn't think to bring them over. But I did purchase from the Woolly Horse. Now I can't remember where she's at, but she's in Ohio. I want to say that she's like, oh, I'm not even going to tell you. I have no idea. But she's the woollyhorse.com. She had a really great booth. Like a lot of her square footage was dedicated to wool yardage. So for people who do like the rug hooking or wool applique, where you actually use wool fabric, she had a huge selection. And I love the look of that rug hooking that you use strips of wool, but I am not going, at this time, I am not going to weave, and I am not going to start that because I just do not have the square footage for that different stash, right? So like, I still think I'm going to try to do the rug hooking where you use yarn. And I have some ideas about trying to experiment with that a little bit more, but I love the look of the wool strips, but this point, I'm going to just say no. But that's how she got me. So she had also a bunch of punch needle. And so before, when I've seen punch needle, people primarily use like the Valdani threads or different pearl cottons. sorry, I'm getting older and my vision is changing a lot. And so you're like this far from my face, and it's like this place where I can't see the screen. I can't see your face properly. That's really just my face. But like my glasses, like I can see the distance and I can see close up, but this like mid-range is, and I know that you could get different glasses prescriptions for that, but I'm just not there yet. Because this is really the only time I need to do it. Anyway, so she had a lot of punch needle, and a lot of the samples that she had, by the way, she had such good samples. A lot of the samples that she had were worked using the Valdani, but she also had a bunch of samples that she had done, or that she and her business people had done in yarn. And this was one of them. So this one is called Bridal Runner. And it was probably that big-ish. Oh. It's this big-ish. So you see that this fabric is like, I'm guessing like a cotton linen. And then you use this tool, which I happen to have, an ultra punch, but there's other, I mean, you can get like a generic version of this. And it's like this little punch needle. It comes with 3 needles, like a small, a medium, and a large. And it has 12 different settings for the depth of the, so the height of the loops. Always remember to put the needle back in the pin, because let me discuss. I have stabbed myself with this. It's not fun. But this is the yarn she had. She had basically 100% superwash merino, I think, in a single ply, and she had hand dyed, or that she had dyed there. And I'm so predictable to myself. I was like, oh, so you used single ply yarn. I was like, now that I could get into, because again, I could use stash, like, because like doing punch needle doesn't take a lot of quantity, so you could use like your fingering weight leftovers, right? But I really liked her sample, so clearly I had to buy the yarn. Oh my gosh, I didn't buy all the colors I needed. Such a mess. But it's a great way to use up leftover fingering weight. And you can use bigger, so fingering weight with the little ultra punch, you use the medium needle. So like you could use a heavier weight yarn. I don't know that you could go DK even with the larger needle. I could be wrong. I don't know. I've not explored it. But yeah, I'm excited. I was just laughing at myself as I was purchasing it. Because again, I was initially like, oh, I was intrigued. Like, I was not buying anything. I was like, no, thank you. That's lovely. I love it. It's gorgeous, but no, thank you. Because I was like, I'm not buying 9,000 Valdani spools. And she was like, then she had these hanging, and like, oh, so you can use that. And, oh, I'm intrigued because, oh yes, I could use scraps. And then she had this sample, and I was like, but I want that one. Such a mess. Such a mess. But I am excited about that project. And I think my mom got the same one, so we should totally do like a craft day. Mom, who is watching this, we should totally do a craft day and work on our punch needle. I also bought these. So she had a bunch of Valdani 8. Wait, maybe this one is 12. Well, whatever. Yeah, I guess this is 12. Most of it was 8, but she had these, which I had never seen before. And they're like tweedy pearl cottons. How fun is that? So like I've been using pearl cotton to do a little bit of hand embroidery, so big stitch hand embroidery. And I was just like, I couldn't resist that because I was like, that's super fun. I don't know how it'll look, but I bet it'll be cute. I think that's just too close for the camera. She's confused. That was useless. I'm sorry. Thank you for spending those few seconds with me And that was useless. I apologize. And then, so that was the Ohio Valley Shop Hop. And then it was also Greencastle's Wool Show. So Greencastle Wool Show, formerly known as the Fiber Event. Last year, they changed to new people who are organizers. So it's still, I don't know any of the hot goss. I have no idea. But it seems like it's kind of, they're having a, it's not soaring yet. So hopefully it's going to continue and like continue to build. There were lots of great vendors there. I got to see the lovely folks at Oink. And they're going to be at YarnCon this coming weekend. Are you going in Chicago? If you're going to YarnCon, Oink's going to be there. Tell them I said hi. This is their Coven base. It's a light fingering weight, 460 yards, 100 grams, and it's 65% silk, 35% linen. And this is their colorway. Public cervix announcement. I'm just really in love with this like minty aqua-y goodness right now, and I'll show you why in a minute. Or I'll further show you that I'm into it in a minute. But they had a sample knit with this. They have that base in both the fingering weight, light fingering weight, and a DK weight. But they had a sample. Very unable to function with my hands. Of Bias by Helena Bristow. And it was just really fun. So it was just like sort of like a long rectangle. It's like a stole shape. It was very open, but it just had a really fun drapey like expansion of those like of the meshiness of the knit. So I think I might actually just knit straight up that exact same thing because it was really fun. And I was like, oh, it'd be fun to have a lighter weight thing to wear in the summer, just like for a little accent, a little pop. So we've been watching Queer Eye, so I am definitely mimicking a little JVN right now. I have a very strong tendency of mimicry. So I acknowledge that about myself. So if we've ever hung out and you've been like, did she steal that from me? I 100% probably did, because that is what I do, and it's not intentional, and I'm not trying to like copycat you. It is unconscious on my part completely, but clearly it means I think you're the best. So there's that. And then there was a new to me dyer called Granite Mountain Fiber Company, and she is in I think she said West Virginia, so she took a drive, bless her. And I bought her Colebrook fingering, which is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon in the aqua colorway. I know, right? Spoiler. I just finished. Every season has a color story. But I purchased this because Autumn was knitting on the Dre Renee, oh, what is it called? Viacor? Why can I not remember? Anyway, it's like that tee that was 3 colors, and it was 2 main colors and then like a secondary color. Maybe it'll be close enough in my history page from when I looked it up again. Oh my gosh, there's so many cute sweaters in my history page on Ravelry. I've been looking at so many cute things. Oh my gosh. Vellicor, Vellichor. Why can't I make it bigger? That's how. It's this little one. It came out a couple of years ago. And when it came out, I instantly bought the pattern because I thought it was super cute. And then I've just kind of sat on it. So I have like a darker brown and sort of a navy. So I thought maybe that would be cute to do this as like the pop through. We'll see. If nothing else, I'll find something else to do with it. Speaking of sweaters I want to knit. Have you seen the new Vera Valimaki, the Neon Bliss? It's intarsia. It's fingering weight. I really am tempted. I'm so tempted. But it's so cute. And fingering weight sweaters, I know they're, again, as a fat person especially, like not the most exciting thing to embark on because you're just like, oh, here's 800 years of my life. But they're a good value dollar-wise because it takes fewer skeins of yarn to make them. And they are so much more wearable. Oh my gosh, but did you see La Bien-Aimée? How stinking cute. Love the hot pink and the ochre. Is that ochre? It's not really, it's a little greener than ochre, but oh, just so cute. Of course, that's in her yarn. That is yellow. Oh, so that's Yellow Brick Road for her. That's her like biggie. So Fluoro Morganite, which is her like great hot pinky corally. And with that striped little dress under it. Style icon. So cute. So anyway, so that is also high on my like list. I'm such a mess. So that's, so yes, so like that was so good to see that pattern and be reminded of like, oh, that's right, I really did like that one quite a lot. But I also wanted to show you that the dyer of this yarn, she had a shop sample of hers. It's called the Crawford Notch Shawl, and it's a crocheted shawl using 3 colors, and it was super cute. So these are not, this is a different color sample than she had, but it was super cute. It was like the crocheted linen stitch, and it had wonderful drape. It was really cute. So I'm looking forward to making that in the future as well. So again, that's the Crawford Notch Shawl by Gabby Clark. So I just wanted to show you the texture of it. It's really enjoyable. Oh, that's a lot of my face. That's more of my face. Anyway. Okay. So that was the Greencastle Wool Show. All right. And just popping in to say thank you to everybody who came and sat and knit a while. It was really great to visit with you. Even if you weren't able to visit, just to say hello. So I just want to say thank you. I apologize that I forgot to do that in the regular recording. So we have to talk about today. I have sewing, I have stitching, I have quilting, I have knitting, and then I have booking, reading. That's what we probably call it. Because I did read the books. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is actually, I finished it quite a few weeks ago, and then I forgot to tell you about them. I finished Daughter Judy. That's the sewing. Is that right? Okay, yeah, that's right. It's a new to me pattern company. I've never sewn anything from them. It's called Daughter Judy, and they have a pair of trousers called the Co trousers. And I will be honest with you, I would never have picked them. I was looking for barrel trousers. And so you're asking, what are barrel trousers? They're literally trousers or pants, whatever. They can be elastic waist or like a firm waistband that look like the silhouette is like a barrel, right? Like they do this. So they're not a straight legged pant. They look like a barrel. And there can be varying degrees of barreliness. So, for example, I made the Aeronite pants, which is a pattern by Sew Liberated, and I made those several years ago. But they are very voluminous. They probably are not technically, they might not even be considered barrel because they're like barrel pants. Sorry. I wasn't looking at the screen. I just saw it as I leaned back, and that's why that was a lot of my face. But I really love them. I also have sewn the bob pants from Style Arc. They're an elastic waist. And Style Arc is such a hard I'm so glad that they're available. They're one of the first patterns that I ever found that were in my size years ago, before most anyone else was doing patterns in my size. Not that there weren't some, but most folks were not making them in my size. So I really appreciate that Starlarkers had that. And they also have always had the option, well, as long as I've known about them, they've always had the option of either buying the pattern in print or you can buy the PDF and have it printed. And you can even get them through Amazon if you don't have a local source for them. So I'm really glad that they're available in all of those places. Their instructions leave much to be desired. They are not a great option for beginners. They're not a good option for beginners. Also, they have a tendency to put inseam pockets in them, and I do not like how they do their pockets, their inseam pockets. So the barrel pants, you know, they have this profile. Well, the pair I have that have the pattern, the pockets as written, the pocket volume, because the pants are loose in that area, the pockets just on mine just like flip out so that they're like outside your body. Like they're on, like instead of the pocket laying on the front of your thighs, it just like goes every which way, which tends to be out to the edge of your thighs. So it kind of creates this like weird bubble that I do not care for at all. Now, they have other pants that are this like barrel profile. They have, oh my goodness. So they have they have the bobs, which are the first ones. Those are an elastic waist. They have another pair, I want to say they're the berry. Yes, they have berry, and I'll just show you that profile, which is again another elastic waist. Well, I was looking for a firm waist because I wanted to use a denim, and denim is a little heavy to try to do an elastic waist with. You can do whatever you want, but it just doesn't work quite as well. So I was looking for a hard waistline, and these trousers, COE by Daughter Judy. I would never have picked them because this is the pattern photo. They're made in like a very drapey fabric, but thanks to the magic of Instagram, I was able to see several people I like. You can look under hashtag COE trouser, and lots of people have made them in a firmer fabric, and I really liked the profile. So I went ahead and did those, and I really like them. The only thing, they do have them pictured in a denim, and you can see that there's a little bit more definition. So this is the first time I've used their pattern. I really liked them. I used the size that I should use per my measurements. The only thing I did different, oh, let me put a picture of them in here. The only thing I did differently is I added an inch to the rise because I love an ultra high rise pant. I just love them. They're my favorite. And then the other thing I did differently is I did not put a buttonhole in them. I just used a hook and eye because I needed to put a hand sewn buttonhole in them because my machine just doesn't like that denim. Trying to do a buttonhole on it. Just doesn't care for that. But the hook and eye is working quite well. So maybe I won't put a buttonhole in there. But anyway, it's an option. So I added an inch to the rise. That's all I did differently. And I really like them. Oh, okay, that's not true. I did tack them in a little bit at the back waist. I always do this for pants because the proportion between my high waist and, because with that, like basically like a couple inches below my bra line, and my butt is big. It's a big difference, and so I always have to take them in a little bit more at the waist. So I did do that. I forgot, but that's something I would do for anything, any pant ever. That's not an elastic waist. Sorry, I'm distracted. My husband is trying to make the lawnmower work. So the lawnmower will probably start in a minute. I apologize. I hope it's not too loud. Anyway, I really enjoy them. Fabric is a 12, I think it's 12 ounce. It could be 10, but I'm pretty sure it's 12 ounce bull denim that I dyed using Rit dye, because really these were actually just a wearable muslin. So I didn't intend them for being, I just really wanted to see how the pattern would work. But I really like them, and I'm going to continue to wear them, and they're purple. Who am I? I don't know. I don't even like purple that much. I do like these purple pants though. Lavender, whatever. That's even weirder that they're lavender and I like them. So yeah. Oh, and since then, Style Arc has put out a new barrel panted pattern. But anyway, Style Arc just put out a new pattern called the Twig Woven Pant. And they're calling it Bob's Best Buddy. And it has like the traditional waistband in the front and the gathering in the back. And they have a very cute profile. There are lots of other barrel pants out there. Yeah. Mix and Match Sewing Club just put out a pattern. I would consider the Eve pants, or is it Eve or Evie pants from Merchant at Mills. That's another option. But anyway, there's lots of them out there. I want to try them all. Oh, so other things I forgot. I just remembered. I also did not put belt loops on these pants because I never wear a belt, and I didn't put back pockets on them. I often don't put back pockets on pants that I sew because, quite frankly, I don't use the back pockets, and I just catch them on door handles all the time, and both like risk ripping them off of my pants and also risk me knocking myself to the ground because I'm moving at a velocity such that being immediately latched onto a door handle can knock me over. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. That was a lot about trousers. Okay, so now for stitching. Ding. In stitching, I am continuing to work on my Animal Crackers pattern, which is by Stacy Nash. And this is Henrietta. She's a chicken. Here she is. So I'm just slowly working on her. I need to do her little shoes and then her whole upper self. And I am using the called for flosses. This is not the called for fabric, but whatever. It's the same gauge. So it's one strand of floss over two of the linen. 1/2. Isn't it cute? You're like, it looks like nothing. Whatever, it's cute. That's what she looks like. So that is what I am stitching. Quilting, I can't remember if last time I was meant to look before we talked, but I forgot. I can't remember if last time I showed you my little new table quilt. Did we talk about it? I don't remember. But I have it all pieced and I have it quilted. I just need to apply my binding. And I've kind of put a pause on it because I'm trying to decide. I have enough fabric left over that I could do a scrappy binding, and I do love a scrappy binding. Or I have these apples because hi apples. Now, if I do the apples for the binding, then I could maybe make some bags out of my scrappy leftovers, which would be fun. I also have enough of the pink apples to do. I love this fabric so much. I'm really excited about this kind of green lately, which is not normally my jam, but I really like it. Anyway, so I also have of this. So I think maybe I will use the apples and then maybe make some knitting bags, some project bags. with the scraps. We'll see. I just did like a grid quilt on 1.5, so 1.5 inch, because these are 3 by 6. So it made sense just to eyeball it and do the quilting here, and then like eyeball it from here to here, do it here, and then eyeball this one, because I'm not measuring that out. And the background is just some white fabric. I don't even know what. I think maybe it's Kona, but it also could be. I think it is Kona because I'm pretty sure it's white back. So I think this is Kona snow. But yeah. So yeah, so I need to do the binding of that. I also have to put together my 36 patch quilt. I have all the pieces done, which I showed you several, like maybe a month or 2 ago. But I need to do the actual layout, and it's such a big quilt that it's like kind of a pain. So that is my quilting. And then knitting. Let's talk about knitting. So I've actually had this finished for a while, but I just kept forgetting to show you. I finished my academic vest. I will try to remember to put on a bra and pants and take a picture of it and put it in here. So this is a pattern by Skendeer, and it's super great. It's a great color work. If you're used to doing stranded color work, it's very small repeats, so it's not at all a lot to remember. It's pretty easy to put colors together with because there's not some traditional Fair Isle patterns like have multiple foreground colors in each sort of like bar repeat. And that can be a little bit more challenging to put together. I mean, this one does too, but like sometimes the foreground and the background are changing colors. And this one does a little bit, but not to the point where it's, well, I mean, what were there, like 5 colors in this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I think the first stranded color I ever did was like 12 or something. So this is like a nice project if you have done stranded color work and you want to just put one together, and it's not stressful to try to figure out all your colors or what have you. So this one is knit with Jameson and Smith that I purchased at Tuscan Rose in Paducah, Kentucky. And yeah, I did mine a little bit differently than Skendeer did, just again because my proportion of bust to back, you can kind of see it if I hold it this way, I think. Like you can see that the front is pushing back. That's because the back is narrower than the front because I have adipose tissue in my chest that I need more room for. And I also made the shoulder a little narrower than is in the pattern because again, I proportionally have a narrower shoulder set. Those are the things I did differently. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it. I love how the acid color turned out, this like yellow, combined with the green. The yellow itself is like, it looks very sulfurous here. The yellow itself is really pretty. It's not that exciting of a color. It's more of a butter yellow. I mean, maybe a little bit darker than a butter. But because it's right next to this like grassy green throughout, it makes it read a little bit more like citron-y, which I really like. So again, that's the Academic Vest by Skendeer. I think I made mine just slightly longer than hers, just like a smidge also. Because I can't do anything as I'm told. So then the next thing I have to show you, which I think I had started on last time, yes, is the Traveler Shawl, which is a pattern by Dre Renee. And I saw Midtown Knitter knitting on, I think this was what she was knitting on. And I was like, oh, that looks fun. And I knew I had this hand spun, and I had several other yarns that I had wanted to put with it in a different project that didn't work out. So they were all caked up and I just wanted to make something with it. And I am so pleased with how it turned out. So her pattern is written, she used hand spun in hers. This side of mine is hand spun. Basically what I did is it's 2 triangles. Right? Yeah. Right? Whatever. You start at one of the triangles. And then you finish this triangle and then you go back and you work this other triangle. So what I did is I just did this triangle until I ran out of hand spun. Because that was the goal, is to use all of the hand spun up, but also to not run out of hand spun. And so I think mine was smaller than hers. But I also don't know that like I don't know what my finished dimensions are compared to hers. I knit to fewer stitches than she did. And then I came back here and I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to have like 2 triangles, 2 different colors? So this was hand spun, which I'm not sure who the spinner or the dyer was. I apologize. This, I had the skein from On the Round. That's right? On the Round. And then I had a skein of mohair. So this I think is like a Corriedale sock. And then this was a mohair. And I don't know who made this one, I'm sorry. Because again, I caked them up like last year about this time. So I held those together for this side. And I am super pleased with how it turned out. I blocked it. I mean, to block it, I just soaked it in my woolens. Tuft woolens, thank you. Whew, thanks, brain. I just soaked it in my Tuft woolens and then just hung it on the line to dry. In fact, it did a little solstice bathing. It was drying as the solstice was happening, as the equinox was, as the eclipse was happening. So it's imbued with the new vitality of the equinox, of the solstice. But yeah, I'm super pleased with it. I'm also just really pleased to have used up this hand spin, which I loved. It just could not, you know, sometimes you just have yarns that just don't want to be the thing. You just try them and try them, they just like resist. But this was a really fun project. I enjoyed it quite a lot. You can knit it, I mean, you can basically knit it however big you want, basically. It's easy that way. You just have to make a few little adjustments. But she also has it so that you can make this triangle can be longer, skinnier, like the one I did, or you can make it shorter, fatter. So you can make faster decreases than what I did if you want this triangle to be a little bit smaller. So yeah, right? All right, I'm gonna go close the door. Maybe that'll help with the lawnmower sound. I'll be right back. And so I used up all of my hand spun, which was like an 8-ounce skein, probably of DK-ish. And then I used almost a full like 100-gram skein, and then almost a 25-gram skein of mohair silk. So there's that. And then, yeah. So the rest of the book, the rest of the podcast is going to be like book talky. So if you're not interested, I will see you next time. If you want to hang out through the lawnmower noise, thank you. Ding. So, I'm still kind of experimenting with this like talking about books thing. I used to just talk about something every great once in a while if it was especially like oomphy to me. But I'm trying to talk a little bit more about books that I am enjoying, but also not talk about everything I'm reading because A, I don't want it to feel like a laundry list that I'm just going through. And B, one of the things I read about in 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, which I'll talk about in a second, was talking about one of the reasons that we can feel so overwhelmed, that we can feel like there's so many things on our to-do list, is because more things are presented to us than ever have been before, right? So I don't in any way want to contribute to anybody's sense of overwhelm or anything like that. So if you're in that place right now, you don't need to watch this. You're fine. At the same time, I like reading recommendations, and lots of times I hear a reading recommendation, I'm like, that's not for me, but I'm glad you read it and glad you enjoyed it, or glad you didn't. Thanks for taking the bullet. So that's the energy I'm trying to go forward through, like trying to edit down to just, a handful of things that I have finished, whether that's, and maybe it'll be one thing that I've finished that I want to talk about at all, or maybe it'll be 4 or 5 things, or maybe it'll be no things. So yeah, that's the energy I'm trying to go forward with. So in order of recommendation, most recommended to least. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And this came out several years ago, I believe, and it was recommended to me, so it's 2021. It was recommended to me by a viewer, thank you, and highly recommend, very much enjoy it. The premise of the book is essentially, if you're lucky, you get 4,000 weeks. So rather than talk about time management as like trying to do more and more and more things and fit more and more and more things in, it's basically the premise of like, hey, amongst other things, it's like edit what you want to try to do. Do what's really important to you and let other things fall to the side. One of the concepts I really liked was this concept, and again, this is all just like, you do you. Some of the things I took away from it that I enjoyed the most, or that I enjoyed thinking about the most, were getting rid of middling priorities. So, make a list. So there's like 40 things you want to do. I'm ballparking here. Or like 4,000. There's 40 things you really want to do. So the concept is like, take the first 3 and do those. Now, it's not take the first 3, focus on those, but then also include the next 10. It's like, no, actually don't even think about those 10, because those 10 are interesting enough to you that you will be distracted from doing the things you really want to do. Because they're kind of, it's right, they're not like the bottom of the list, they're like the things you have to do and you're just like, oh, I gotta do them. They're like, ooh, they're sexy, they're shiny, they're distracting from the things you really want to get done. And so they'll dilute your efficacy over the long term. I thought that was an interesting concept. And this is just like at this point, what I'm taking away from it. I think I will read this book again or listen to it again. I consumed this book by both listening and reading. I purchased the hard copy after checking out the audio version from my library because I felt like it was rich enough that I wanted to be able to have it to reference. And I think that was a good decision for me. Okay, so things I took away. Ooh, another thing I thought was an interesting concept was the price of the attention economy, right? So like, I think most of us are in this place of awareness of like, yeah, social media is very distracting. It's engineered, or just, your phone in general, apps, whatever. They're engineered to keep your eyes on the screen, right? They're engineered to engage you. And lots of times that engagement is through like frustration or anger or like total zone routery. Like, so I know most of us are in that place of like understanding that. But one of the things I thought was interesting, which I think we all know, but maybe had not like succinctly drilled down on, was that it's not just like, oh, you get done looking at like Facebook or whatever, and like looking at your Aunt Jenny's annoying comments about XYZ. It's not just that you like find yourself like, oh, I've used an hour of my life, 1 hour of my 4,000 weeks to look at this thing that was really just like ultimately like not worth my while, right? But it's not just that. It's that 1 hour, yes, it's gone now, goodbye. But it also is like, how has that framed the rest of your time, right? So if you spend an hour getting really worked up at how group Z well, I don't want to call Z because that's a generation. Group L is really just riling you up. Like, right? Like, and you just spent like an hour just being angry at this group for doing whatever it is that they're doing or having whatever opinion they're having or what have you. Like, then it's not just the hour. It's like, how has that colored your perception of those people? How does that influence how you interact with those people? How does that influence how you interact with Aunt Jenny in the real world? So I thought that, again, I think we know that, but to like really put a succinct point on it, like, right? Like this, for example, if you spend your hour on the internet and you're, oh, I lost an hour, but you've spent that hour looking at your like neighborhood, what's that app? I don't know, whatever it's called, your neighborhood app. And like, basically it's just everybody talking about how they've had something stolen or they've frustrated with this neighbor or whatever. Like, how does that color how you view your neighborhood after you get off of that app? Would you still have the same viewpoint? It's one thing to be informed. It's another thing to be abraded, right? To just be constantly irritated. And again, to have, again, like, what is my sample size that I'm working from? Like, what is the motivation of the people posting? All that stuff. And we all know that, right? Like, but sometimes it's hard to bring that to the front of our knowing. So I thought that was really good. Oh, and so then the other thing. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about earlier about cosmic insignificance theory. Okay, so one thing that I thought was interesting. Do I need to have a post for synonyms of interesting? Clearly. Do I? No. One thing I found interesting. Okay, so he frames up this cosmic insignificance theory by this, like, this is the framework. Is that, okay, so basically human known experience is basically 6,000 years. And he talks about, like, at any time in history, there's probably been somebody who lived to be 100 years old. That's not all of the people, but theoretically we could think about people who, these centurions, these 100-year-old people, and their lives like just going back to back through time, right? If we think about that, then, for example, Henry VIII, I wrote it down here. Henry VIII, get this. Oh wait, he goes this other direction. Okay, I'll go the direction he goes. If we line these people up, then the golden age of the Egyptian pharaohs was 35 lifetimes ago. Only 35. The Renaissance, 7. Again, they're not generations because there's it's just like mind experiment, okay? The Renaissance, 7 lifetimes ago. Henry VIII, 5. Okay, and then like the whole of the jam is only 60. There's only 60 100-year lives that we could stack up going back. Now, he uses this to be like, oh, you're like, we're cosmically insignificant. And like, there's a good side to that. If your initial reaction is like, but I kind of feel like it, for me, that's not how that works. Like, I don't look at that and think, oh my gosh, Henry VIII was only 5 lifetimes ago, and then think like how vast the stretch of human existence. Like, that makes it feel much more condensed to me. So I just wanted to point that out because A, I thought it was just a really fun thought experiment, but also for me, it does not make me feel less, it does not make my lifetime feel less significant. If anything, the opposite, right? Like, I'm like 6,000 years, I'm this big. But like, if I live to 100 years, like my lifetime is 1/60th of that. Oh my gosh, that's a lot, right? But anyway, it's a fun thought experiment. Cosmic insignificance theory is basically that billions of us have lived. There's like a handful of us that have made really like big influence, right? Like big Henry VIII influence, right? So take comfort in the fact that you can have, what do we say? that you can have a modestly meaningful life. Like, right? Like, you could strive and strive and strive and strive and strive and strive and strive. In all likelihood, no difference will be made beyond the modestly meaningful life. So, do things that are joyful to you. Do things that help the people that you love. Do things that support your community. Have a modestly meaningful life. Don't strive and strive and strive. Oh, again, you do you, but I'm not gonna. I needed this news. I was having this struggle not too long ago where I've been like, is this really my place? Is this what I need to be doing? Or am I just doing this because it's convenient or because it's less scary? You know, I was doing this whole thing. And so this rung especially true to me because it was a question I was putting out there for myself and for the universe. But to do things that are enjoyable to you, that are helpful to the people that you love. Again, you're like spheres of influence. Remember them. And like, yes, some people are going to be able to affect larger spheres of people. But those people are very rare. And like, God bless. It's okay if you don't. And like, I find that very peaceful. Okay, so those are the things that I took away that were the most powerful to me. But I highly recommend this, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, by Oliver Burkeman. But yeah, check it out from your library first. See if it's something you think you like. Or don't. You might just be like, no, that's not something for me. Also great. So the next book I finished is called Good Material by Dolly Alderton. And it's a fiction book. I'll read you the synopsis. From the best-selling author of Ghosts and Everything I Know About Love, a story of heartbreak and friendship and how to survive both. Andy's story wasn't meant to turn out this way. Living out of a suitcase in his best friend's spare room, waiting for his career as a stand-up comedian to finally take off, he struggles to process the life-ruining end of his relationship with the only woman he's ever truly loved. As he tries to solve the seemingly unsolvable mystery of his broken relationship, he contends with career catastrophe, social media paranoia, a rapidly dwindling friendship group, and the growing suspicion that at 35, he really should have figured this all out by now. Andy has a lot to learn, not least his ex-girlfriend's side of the story. Warm, wise, funny, and achingly relatable, Dolly Alderton's highly anticipated second novel is about the mystery of what draws us together and what pulls us apart, the pain of really growing up, and the stories we tell about our lives. So I always have a little bit of and I listened to this on audiobook if I didn't say so. I always have a little bit of hesitation about books written from another gender's point of view. What is he mowing? Did I mention that there's like 3 feet between our house and the neighbor's house? And that 3 feet that he can access from there is only 10 feet deep. What is he mowing? So I'm always like, why? Like, why is this what? Again, I'm not against it. It's just always kind of like but I really enjoyed this book. But what I enjoyed this book, but what I really enjoyed about this book was like the 15% of it at the end that's told from the woman's point of perspective in the relationship. So I think I looked at it literally, and it's like the first 85% is from Andy's perspective and the last 15% is from hers. And a lot of people, I mean, I didn't particularly like him, but a lot of people really did not like his character. I was just like, yeah, this feels like a predictable 30-something white dude from England. This feels like an understandable, predictable character sketch. And again, I'm listening to the audiobook while I'm working. It's pretty low stakes investment for me. But I didn't dislike him so much that I needed to turn it off. I was curious to see what was going to happen. I found him to become more likable as the story went on for me. But I think the actual gold of the book is the last 15%, in which the woman, at the very beginning of the book, the man gives his reasons that he's glad he's not with the lady. And then you get his story. And then the back end of the book, you get her reasons that she's glad she's not with him. It's like a therapy exercise. And then her perspective. And her perspective is like laser focused and so good to me. This is the thing I took away from it. This is the thing that rang. Like, I still feel like, I kind of feel like it's ringing in my body still. Because no spoilers or anything, but like, she talks about, or she describes, whatever. She, at one point in their, like, towards the end of their relationship, she gets sick. And I think she has like tonsillitis or something. It's, you know, like a finite illness. And I think she's sick for like a week. And it's like, she misses a day of work. She's never missed a day of work. That kind of thing. Like, she's not regularly unwell. But she's like pretty unwell. And her partner does not help her at all. Like, he does not show care for her at all. He continues on his life. Like, she says, I think that he maybe made her a cup of tea. And not only was that so heartbreaking, and I identified with it, you know what I mean? Like, in that deep, like, way. But also, the thing that really zinged it was she talked about how, like, her friends or her coworkers, somebody asked her, or like made the comment, like, oh, Andy must be taking really good care of you. And she has no idea how to say, no, he's not. Because there's shame involved with it. It's almost like a reflection on you that the person you're with is not showing care for you. And then it's also just really painful to be like confronted with the fact that this person that you have invested a lot of time and energy and space in your life to is not able to do that. And like, she's a highly valued woman. She's like a beautiful woman. She's got a great career, all these things. And like, that was just like, so like the way you can like the way the others described so much, and that just like that space was just like really good, and like also painful, but also just like, it also was comforting because you're like, oh, okay, like this is a thing. Also, that sucks. Like all of those emotions were just so good in that. So I really enjoyed that. I feel like there was something else I was going to tell you that was part of that, but now I apologize. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, so that was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. And so I'll talk about A Country Year, Living the Questions by Sue Hubble. Here's the synopsis. When her 30-year marriage broke up, Sue Hubble found herself alone and broke on a small Ozarks farm. Keeping bees, she found solace in the natural world. She began to write, challenging herself to tell the absolute truth about her life and the things that she cared about. The result is one of the best-loved books ever written about life on the land, about a woman finding her way in middle age. So again, I listened to this one from my library. Thanks, library. And I did enjoy it. Quite frankly, it was not my favorite book. Again, middle-aged, divorced, beekeeper in the Ozarks. I'm going to read it. Like, I love any book where there's a woman alone and she's in agriculture. I'm sign me up. I'm 100% in. And I did enjoy it, but this, when it says it's a favorite, like the reviews on it are like very much like, I read this book every year. I read this, I've read this book like multiple times. It really wasn't that for me. I enjoyed it. It's also like a yearbook, so it's from one season to the next, which I really enjoy that format as well. It's another plus for me. But it did not particularly hit me. Again, I enjoyed it. But I think also like it was published in, I want to say 1999. Yeah. And I'm thinking that maybe that has something to do with the like deep place in some people's hearts, because that was definitely a much more unusual voice, 25 years ago. So I'm thinking maybe that's why it is very deep for a lot of people, deep in their like enjoyment zone. What is that? My husband is also wearing a very bright orange shirt, so it's so distracting. Every time he moves in my field of vision, I'm like, anyway, like safety orange. Anyway, so I enjoyed it. If you are a person who enjoys that kind of book, I recommend it. A Country Year, Living the Questions. And then the last one I'll mention is Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing by Emily Lynn Paulson. And so let me read you that synopsis. She signed up for the sisterhood, free cars, and the promise of a successful business of her own. Instead, she ended up with an addiction, broken friendships, and the rubble of a toppled pyramid scheme. Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing is the eye-opening, funny, and dangerous personal story of author Emily Lynn Paulson, rising to the top of a pyramid in the multi-level marketing world, only to realize that its culture and business practices went beyond a trendy marketing scheme and into the heart of white supremacy in America. A significant polemic on how MLMs operate, Hey Hun expertly lays out their role in the cultural epidemic of isolation and the cult-like ideologies that course through their trainings, marketing, and one-on-one interactions. Equally entertaining and smart, Paulson's first-person account, acerbic wit, and biting commentary will leave you with a new perspective on those Hey Hun messages flooding your inbox. And so this was published 2023. Yeah, definitely mixed feelings about this. I mean, I am endlessly curious about MLMs and like culty things, right? Like I'm endlessly curious about these like systems that set up to draw people in, how they draw people in, how they maintain people, you know, what they do to influence. And again, especially MLMs, so targeted, you know, almost exclusively, not exclusively, but almost exclusively to women. And so I think the book does a good job of that, of like really focusing in on how they get people into this MLM, why people stay, what desire that is feeding. She does a really good job of that. And she does a better job than historically has been done about talking about white supremacy and how it is like really interwoven in a lot of the ideologies of these MLMs. But it also felt kind of like off the cuff. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an author. I don't know how to do it. But it felt like it was almost like paying lip service. Like, yeah, I know this is really garbage. And I don't approve of the garbage, but I'm deep in the garbage, right? Like it's hard to, and that's probably just like really hard to come to terms with that, right? Like to come to terms with like the really, really like deeply racist, deeply classist, deeply greed oriented stuff about this thing that you're really enmeshed in. And so maybe that's part of that is just like not, is like mentioning it, but like not taking it in. Do you know what I mean? Like holding it out here, and it comes across that way in the book, right? Like she's like pointing all this stuff out, but also like not talking about how she's culpable in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, or maybe just like not, it's almost like she's trying to write the book to come to terms with all of this like gross stuff. But part of the book that's hard to deal with is that she's involved in this thing for a very long time and makes a lot of money from it. Like a lot of money in it. And for very much of that time, she is very aware of how predatory her position is in this predatory system. And it feels like a really like, it's like she's trying to do it to make amends or like to, and in some ways she is like, right? Like she's putting more, she's putting out there like all these practices that are done so that people can be aware of them or be more conscious of them. But also she's making a lot of money while participating in them. And she is directly seeing how her place in this system is robbing other women. And that feels really scummy. Like really, really scummy. Like her sort of like I think maybe like what we're hearing from her is like that she's like going to keep participating in it because, well, like these people underneath of her are going to still be in this system and they're still going to be losing money. So she might as well get her piece of the pie. But like, and like good on her for like confessing to that or like for saying that, but also it's real distasteful, to put it mildly. So yeah, it was a hard one. Like it felt very much, you know, lots of times I feel like when you read, what do we call self-help books now? Self-improvement? There's like a new name for it in like the bookstore. Lots of times those books are written and sometimes they can feel a little bit like the person is like using it as like a lead in to another service they're offering, right? Like, yes, this is my practice. This is a little bit about my practice. If you'd like to learn more, you can become a client. Kind of that feel. And she has developed a what is that called? A coaching platform for alcoholics, specifically targeting mothers who are alcoholics. And so it kind of feels a little bit like maybe like we're using it as like a lead into that, which also feels kind of dirty. I mean, again, I know everybody's gotta make a living. I'm not trying to do that, but also it does feel a little bit like cringy. Maybe? I don't know. Did you feel like that? Did you read it? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I would definitely, I will not read it again. And I'm not upset that I read it. I'm not like, oh, but also it did make me feel pretty uncomfortable. So yeah, so that's what I want to talk about this week. And yeah, that's all. So, I don't have a closer. I hope you have a delicious sandwich. I hope you get to hear some birds. Oh my gosh, this is so terrible that I'm telling you this because I didn't tell the people earlier and I told them they could leave if they didn't want to hear about books, but just really quickly. Maybe I'll remember to tell you next time too. Just tell the other kids if they've already left. I didn't realize this, but I was riding my bike the other day and I thought I saw a northern flicker, which I'm very excited about because I never see them here. Even though they're supposed to be a common bird, I just never see them. But it was a bird that was flying away, so I only saw it from the back, so I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't sure. So when I came home, I looked on the Merlin, the Cornell Labs Merlin, what is it, Bird ID or Merlin Bird ID. And I haven't been on there in the longest time. And I realized when they have changed their sound ID. And it is so cool. So it used to be like when you would do the sound ID, it was kind of like persnickety, like had to like hold the thing really close to the birdish, or it's like as close as you could. Not like it needed to be like this close. But you had to like, and I think it like did a finite recording and then like it uploaded the recording and then like there was some sort of like do and it like told you what bird it thought it was. But now you click on it and it will just listen for the birds and then it will like pop up what it hears. So it's not going to do it now because I'm talking and like it can't hear the bird song. But what will happen, oh wait, I've got another one. I think I've got a recording showing. Maybe that's what I have. Oh, see, that's the other thing. It will save your sound recordings. So like you can be like, oh, what was that? Okay, so this is what it looks like. Like it will like pop up the birds as it hears them. So this is a recording that I made earlier. I didn't even know it was saving it. It's so fancy. But what will happen is it will highlight, like the bird will appear if it hears the bird, and then it will highlight the bird as the bird is making its sound. So you can go back, like if you're outside and there's like a bunch of bird song and you're like not sure which one is which, you can go back and it'll isolate out. How cool is that? How cool is that? So yeah, like I'm so excited about it. I mean, they've always had the thing where you could like look up like, oh, what does a robin's call sound like? And it'll give you different like usually it gives you like 4 or 5 different ones that they might make. But this is so cool. So not only is it awesome in terms of like, you could also like record your backyard at like different times and go back and look at it. Or again, like you could be maybe on vacation or something and you can download different like maps for Cornell, because obviously my birds in Indiana are not the same birds that you're going to have in like Utah or whatever. But isn't that cool? So anyway, Merlin Bird ID, the coolest. So between that and then like the iPhone thing where like if you take a picture of wildflower and you swipe up and it'll give you suggestions of what the wildflower is. This world, she's magic. So anyway, so yeah, I hope you get to like identify a fun bird, eat a good sandwich, identify a fun bird. Maybe it's definitely spring ephemeral time, so it's definitely spring wildflower time. I hope you get to see identify a new spring wildflower. Enjoy your garden dreamings, or enjoy being like very smug in your need not to garden. I hope you enjoy that. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.